Gage Primar here, crushbackpain.com. Today we're going to talk about two specific bulging disc exercises. These two exercises are especially effective because they do two things. They reduce pressure through the back part of the disc where the bulge is, and they also help to facilitate trunk muscle contraction to stabilize the lumbar spine during activity. If this video helps you, leave me a thumbs up below, leave any comments or questions that you have, and I will answer you. Before we get into the exercises, let's discuss why these exercises are effective. So, bulging discs happen along the back part of the disc. So here's a motion segment, a lumbar motion segment. You've got the vertebrae, and then you've got the disc, which is this red thing in the middle. This is looking at the lumbar motion segment from the side. This is looking at it from the front. So we're going to look at it from the side. Basically, lumbar flexion, which is bending forward, causes the disc to bulge in the back. So that's what causes the disc to bulge. So lumbar extension, which is bending backward, reduces the bulging in the back part of the disc and takes some of that pressure off. So what we want to do to address a bulging disc is we want to reduce lumbar flexion, which causes it to bulge. We want to facilitate lumbar extension, and we want to avoid repetitive lumbar flexion, which causes that bulging, and in-range lumbar flexion. So how do we do that? The first exercise we're going to talk about is called the prone press-up. This is probably familiar to you. It's a cornerstone exercise for bulging discs, herniated discs, because it works. It's been tested and proven over decades to be beneficial for people with bulging discs. So that's the first exercise we're going to go over. Super simple. You literally lay on your stomach, hence prone. This is the prone position, and you just press yourself up. Now the key is keeping your waist in contact with the surface, the floor usually that you're on, and you just press up through a comfortable range. You can hold that position for 5, 10, even 15 seconds if it's comfortable, and then you come back down. And you just nice and easy, and what you'll notice is you do that, it might be a little stiff, a little sore for several reps, but as you work on that prone press up, it'll go a little farther and a little farther. And again, what we're doing, we're taking your lumbar spine out of flexion and we're putting it in extension, which helps decrease the pressure on the bulge. Now I would do anywhere from 10 to 15 reps with holds at the top to tolerance. So you just kind of work this nice and easy. If you think about what most of us do during the day, most of us are seated for the majority of our days. That places the lumbar spine in flexion. That exacerbates bulging discs. So we're literally taking your lower back and we're just going the opposite way with it. We're extending it to reduce the pressure on the bulge, and this can even help reduce the bulge. So it'll reduce pain. It also facilitates the healing process. So the prone press up, do 10, 15 of those 3-4 times a day. It's a great exercise for bulging discs. Now the next exercise we're going to talk about is the hip hinge. The hip hinge is simply what it sounds like. You're literally hinging through your hips while stabilizing your spine. So if you think about how many times you sit down and stand up over the course of the day, it's dozens, and most of us don't think about it, and we kind of do this. We get quite a bit of flexion through our lumbar spine. Like you just saw with the lumbar motion segment, that flexion causes the disc to bulge. So if we check that flexion and don't flex through the low back, but flex through the hips, you're not going to get that constant repetitive flexion over the course of the day. The disc is going to bulge less. It's going to reduce irritability, reduce inflammation, and again facilitate the healing process. So the hip hinge as an exercise is simply getting in a good position, chest is up high, you've got a nice lordosis, which is that natural curve in your lower back, slight bend in the knees, and you literally hinge forward until you feel tension in your hamstrings, and then you pull up. So this part of my spine is not moving. I'm bending forward, but all that forward bend is coming through my hips. That's why it's called a hip hinge. So this, where my hands are in my lower back, is stationary. I'm bending forward till I feel tension in my hamstrings, and then I pull up. Now, a bunch of different things are happening. It's a simple drill, but you're using your lumbar multifidus musculature your lumbar erector spinae musculature to stabilize your lumbar spine, and then you're moving through your hips, which is super important, especially if you have a bulging disc. If you're able to incorporate that motion into your everyday, sitting, standing, bending forward to pick things up, getting into and out of your car, you're going to have much less lower back irritability, much less lower back pain. So a simple drill, simple exercise that has big benefits. So again, if you've ever deadlifted, it's like a deadlift. A deadlift is just a hip hinge. You're just pulling a weight off the floor using a hip hinge. So like if the bar's down here, you just bend down and pick it up, but the motion comes through your hips. So if you're using this just as an exercise, again, chest is up high, you've got the nice curve in your lower back, you just hinge forward through the hips till you feel pulling your hamstrings, pull up. And when you pull up, kind of pop those hips. So that's the hip hinge. That's what it is. And with that, I do 10 or 15 reps, again, 3 or 4 times a day, kind of groove that motor pattern, and then use that as a way to sit and stand. So instead of sitting and standing and getting that excessive repetitive lumbar flexion, hinge through the hips and sit and stand. So every time you sit down and stand up, you're literally doing a hip hinge, and all the motion comes through your hips, you're stabilizing your lumbar spine. So you have built-in therapeutic exercise throughout the day, just sitting down and standing up. So those two drills, the prone press-up and the hip hinge, should be cornerstone exercises if you have a bulging disc. They really reduce the irritability of pain related to bulging discs, and they really help to stabilize the lumbar spine, especially the hip hinge. They really help to stabilize the lumbar spine while you're moving through space, which over time results in more pain-free days. Again, if this video helps you, leave me a thumbs up below. If you have questions on these two drills, drop me a line below and I will answer your questions. I really like helping people on this YouTube platform because it's a great way to teach people how to take care of their spines. So check back weekly here on the Crush Back Pain YouTube channel for proven methods to beat back pain.